Most people believe that success is decided by luck, money, or background. They think some are born to rise, while others are meant to struggle quietly at the bottom. But history tells a different story. Again and again, the lives of extraordinary people reveal a simple truth. Life does not respond to who you are. It responds to who you believe you are. Your thoughts shape your actions shape your habits, and your habits quietly shape your destiny. This story is about a man who had nothing, no money, no education, no status, yet discovered something far more powerful than all three. On the edge of a crowded city stood an old bus terminal where thousands of people passed each day, rushing to work, returning home, or chasing opportunities elsewhere. Among them was a man named Arjun. No one knew exactly how long he had been there. Some believed it had been years. He slept near the terminal entrance, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely protected him from the cold, and during the day he sat beside the main walkway, holding out a small tin cup, softly asking strangers for spare change. Most people walked past without looking. Some dropped a coin out of habit. A few offered sympathetic glances. Arjun accepted it all without complaint. This was his life, and for a long time he believed it was all he deserved. One rainy afternoon, as buses arrived and departed in hurried chaos, Arjun noticed a man standing nearby. The man wore a clean grey coat and carried a leather briefcase. His posture was calm, his eyes focused, not rushed like the others. There was something different about him. Arjun studied the man carefully and thought, he looks successful, confident. People like him always have money. With quiet hope, Arjun stood and approached him. "Sir," he said politely, extending his cup, "could you spare a little change?" The man looked at him, not with disgust or pity, but with curiosity. Instead of reaching for his wallet, he asked, "May I ask you something?" Arjun nodded, confused. "Do you only receive from others," the man continued, "or do you ever give something in return?" The question caught Arjun off guard. He hesitated and replied, "I am just a beggar. I have nothing to give." The man studied him briefly and said gently, "If you believe you have nothing to offer, then you have already decided your value. I don't give without exchange. In life, value moves both ways. If you can offer something, I will gladly give you something in return." Then he checked his watch, nodded politely and boarded his bus. The doors closed, the bus pulled away, and Arjun stood there frozen. That night, Arjun could not sleep. The man's words echoed in his mind. If you believe you have nothing to offer, then you have already decided your value. For years, Arjun had blamed the world for his condition. Bad luck, no opportunities, no help. But now a quiet question refused to leave him alone. What if the problem wasn't the world? What if it was how he saw himself? "I have nothing to give," he whispered, but for the first time, the words felt uncertain. The next day, Arjun did something unusual. He didn't beg. He sat quietly watching people pass by, studying their faces. Some looked tired, some anxious, some lonely. Near the terminal, small wild plants grew through cracks in the pavement, tiny flowers blooming despite the dust and pollution. Arjun noticed how people paused when they saw them, how their faces softened even slightly. An idea stirred in his mind. What if value doesn't have to be big? What if it only has to be real? The following morning, Arjun carefully picked a few of the wildflowers and cleaned them gently using water from a public tap. He returned to his spot, and when someone dropped a coin into his cup, he smiled and held out a flower. "For you," he said. People stopped. Some looked surprised, others smiled. A woman accepted the flower and thanked him. A man laughed softly and placed an extra coin in the cup. By the end of the day, Arjun noticed something strange. He had received more money than usual, but more importantly, he felt different. People weren't avoiding him anymore, they were acknowledging him. Over the next few days, Arjun continued. A coin for a flower for a smile. As long as he had flowers, people gave generously. When he ran out, the coins slowed. The pattern became clear. They weren't giving him money out of pity, they were exchanging value. For the first time in years, Arjun didn't feel invisible. He felt useful. One afternoon, as Arjun handed a flower to a traveler, a familiar voice spoke behind him. "You remembered what I said." Arjun turned around. It was the man in the grey coat. This time Arjun didn't feel ashamed. He smiled and said, "Sir, today I have something to offer." The man smiled back, placed money in Arjun's hand, and accepted the flower. "You've learned faster than most," he said. "Today, you are no longer asking for help. You are earning it. Remember this, you don't become valuable when others say so. You become valuable the moment you decide to be." Then he boarded his bus and left. Arjun stood there holding the empty cup, but it didn't feel empty anymore. That night Arjun made a decision. He stopped sleeping at the terminal. Using the money he earned, he rented a small shared room and began waking early to gather flowers from nearby fields. He learned which ones lasted longer and which people preferred. Soon he wasn't standing at the terminal anymore. He was setting up a small stall. People began to recognize him. "The flower man," they called him. 6 months later, Arjun no longer begged. He traded. One morning at the same bus terminal, 2 well-dressed men crossed paths. One paused and stared. "I know you," he said slowly. Arjun smiled. "Yes, we met here before." The man's eyes widened. "You were the beggar, the one with the flowers." Arjun nodded. "And now?" the man asked. "Now," Arjun replied calmly, "I own a small flower business. I'm traveling to expand it." The man shook his head in disbelief. "What changed?" he asked. Arjun answered without hesitation. "I stopped seeing myself as someone who had nothing." They shook hands, not as giver and receiver, but as equals. Life does not respond to your circumstances. It responds to your mindset. If you believe you are small, the world will treat you that way. But when you recognize your worth, even in the smallest form, life begins to answer back. Change your thoughts, change your actions, and quietly, your future will change too.